They see the race. They see the ethnicity. We see the individuals. They play ethnic politics. They play racial politics, the left does. And it leads to this terrible corruption. So the tip of the iceberg in terms of fraud with government spending, especially social welfare spending, is in Minnesota. You have unbelievable amounts of money that have been fraudulently spent, essentially stolen from American taxpayers. Upwards of $9 billion, maybe much more than that. And Judicial Watch has been always very interested in what's going on in Minnesota because it's been a left-wing mess in a variety of ways for years. The Somali population in Minnesota, because it's politically powerful for the left there, because when they run for office, they rely on the support of the community to win. So as a result, if there is corruption associated with the community in a significant way, it's protected or even enabled by the politicians because they rely on the group. So they treat them like one group, and we call them out for it, and they pretend we're being the racist. In fact, they're treating them like a racist because they say, oh, well, that corrupt Somalian, we can't hold him accountable, or her, because it will make it look like we're attacking all Somalians. They treat people like the caricature of a racist. It's an individual. They see the race. They see the ethnicity. We see the individuals. They play ethnic politics. They play racial politics, the left does. And it leads to this terrible corruption. Now, we've been pursuing these various issues in Minnesota for years. There's been this government corruption, and it's been exposed more recently by that young guy, Mr. Shirley, right? I'm sure you've seen his videos. The federal government's been pursuing the corruption. Even Governor Walz has been cornered into admitting there's a lot of corruption, even though it all blossomed under his watch. And don't believe me, read the New York Times. When I talk to you about why Democrat politicians in Minnesota, the party in Minnesota, the Democratic Party isn't called Democratic Party. It's the Democratic Farmers Workers Party, I think it's called. Oh, excuse me, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And so I read in the New York Times that, New York Times reported all that about the politicians running the state didn't want to cross these criminals because they didn't want to offend Somalians. You're not offending Somalians by prosecuting someone who's committing a crime. You're offending racialists and racists who pretend that prosecuting one group member is prosecuting the entire group. It's absurd. But that's the way the left thinks. So separately, we've been investigating all the corruption that's been going on, and it goes beyond the Somalians. Because, $9 billion, that, you need a lot of help to fraudulently engage, steal that type of money. So it's much broader. And a lot of it is tied to, the left lectures us we need to pay for government childcare. We need to pay for all sorts of disability work or disability help, autism, for example, for these poor kids. And it was those places that were the epitome of fraud. That money just went out in numbers. The numbers alone suggested fraud because you can't just spend that sort of money all of a sudden have a demand that was never there before. It's obviously fraudulent. So we filed a FOIA request for records about the Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, and Families for records concerning the fraud that the agency has uncovered, in this case mostly in the child care sector. And this is a catalog of fraud and criminality that is stark. And I encourage you to go and, because we pulled 458 pages, or just received 458 pages. I don't even think this is a lawsuit, to their credit. They gave us these records. So there could be even more here than I'm going to be able to get to, and certainly I'm not even going to be able to get to the stuff that we exposed in the full release. But the more troubling aspects of it is, so there's all sorts of fraud in the sense that, you know, the invoices don't match, they're being asked to pay for things, there's no evidence that the expense was made. The most significant evidence, in my view, in terms of troubling evidence, is that there was serious issues of people not being children not being supervised as the law requires and as common sense requires. So time after time, they're finding circumstances where they've got people who are not supposed to be there without supervision, watching children as young as babies, like infants, or children having no supervision at all. For example, in December 2024, Nuna Childcare Center was issued a correction order documenting multiple supervision failures within a single afternoon visit. A child ran from the preschool classroom to the school-age classroom alone. So a child ran from the preschool classroom to the school-age classroom alone. A teacher left 3 children alone in the classroom to grab something out of the lobby. Now, look, parents do stuff like that all the time. They got to leave the room, and the kids and the babies or whatever, they're alone for a minute. And parents have no choice. But when you're in a professional atmosphere supervising children, the expectation is that children are supervised by adults at all times. And there are instances after instances of that not happening in these circumstances. Another place, a correction order was issued against ABC Learning Center after inspectors observed children left without supervision. At approximately 3:12 p.m., this was in November 2025, they observed 7 children, school-aged, unsupervised, while a staff person walked down to the toddler and preschool classroom. So this is how bad it is. They know. They've got guys, well, not guys, gals, whoever. They've got inspectors from the state in the facility. So you've got your child care facility. Just think, you're running a child care facility. The inspectors come in, and the teachers are still not supervising the children, including babies. While they're there, it's happening. Can you imagine what is happening when they weren't there? So this is a major safety concern. I don't want to say that's the basis for the fraud, because that's kind of a safety concern. The fraud is in document after document here, and I don't have time to go through it all with you. You can look at it online. But it's repetitive because it's like a standard issue. So they look at, and I got to hand it to the state. They know where to look. They say, how many kids are entering that facility in the morning? Well, let's look at the attendance records. Let's look at what we're being charged in terms of the number of kids who they say are there. So 10 kids enter, yet they're charged for 15 kids. That's not literally the number, but that's exactly what's happening. They can see how many kids enter, and yet they're being charged for ghost children in these child care centers. And there's instance after instance of it happening. And it doesn't necessarily result in the system being shut down or the school being shut down or the child care center being shut down. It results in notices of overpayments. It results in notices of correction in cases of safety issues. And this is just one quick production to Judicial Watch that we put out there. And it's staggering. It's just staggering. Now, is it, relatively speaking, in terms of the numbers, it's relatively modest, but it's obviously a scam. So when you hear the left talk about government daycare, which is what they want to provide, it's not government daycare. It's not. Some of it's government daycare, but there's always a piece taken off the top for fraud. It necessarily goes with the programs. Now, can you mitigate it? Sure you can. Did they mitigate it in Minnesota? By no standard have they mitigated it. Because, as I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg in Minnesota alone. Billions and billions of dollars go out of this federal government, well, trillions, really, with zero oversight. I mean, the outrage is what's been cut in the federal government or what will be cut in terms of government spending as a result of this type of fraud. I see they decided to withhold certain money from Minnesota, I think it was, $250 million because of Medicaid fraud. They said, we're not giving you money until you prove this money is going to the people that taxpayers authorized it to go to. And you can be sure there's going to be a lawsuit over that, if not already. So that you get these modest efforts by the administration, which by comparison with historical standards are tremendous, but still modest in terms of the problem at issue. Zero follow-up from Congress. And this isn't a new issue. The issue of Minnesota social welfare fraud is not new. It's been more in the news, but it had been out there for a long time. So Judicial Watch will keep on keeping on, right? Exposing the full truth about what's going on in Minnesota and other states. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.